We're back, kicking off season 1.5. We might not be live, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. Have a topic or want to join us on the show? Post a comment or send us a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, or email us at partyon@lessthan2000.com for a chance to join us. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share the show with your friends. Without your support, Schwarzenegger won't lift us out of the limo from a helicopter when the bridge is out.
Less Than 2000.
The podcast.
Hey, we're back, man. How was your summer hiatus?
It was awesome. Just went up to the cabin and hung out, boating, swimming, having some beers. It was a great, relaxing time. What'd you do?
I had nothing better to do, so I just analyzed the show and tried to figure out how can we make it better. How do we improve? How do we make season? What are we calling this?
It's just the second half of the season. No, it's still season 1.
I mean, how many shows take a break, take a hiatus, and then still are within the same season? Though?
All of them.
I mean, isn't this season 2?
All of them, unless you're on a streaming platform.
Oh, okay. Well, a couple things I've noticed about our show and the responses to the show. People really like it when I sing. People really like it when you get worked up about stuff, and I think tangentially related to that is probably when I needle you a little bit and get you all worked up. And people also really, really, really like it when we completely geek out on a subject. When you and I just can't hold it back anymore and we just have unadulterated enthusiasm for a topic. Today, we're going to talk about another one of James Cameron's kind of putting the band back together movies, and this is one that Chad and I are surely to completely geek out on. True Lies, James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger back together again just a few years after Terminator 2, and man, was it a good movie.
I don't even know where to begin on this because it's that good. I mean, True Lies, if I was to rank all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's films, it would be Terminator 2 and then it would be True Lies. I mean, I put them right there together.
It is fantastic. I would say Terminator 2 is definitely the better movie, but as far as Arnold Schwarzenegger performances, I have in my notes, I think this is his best acting. I think this is his best movie as far as a vehicle for Arnold. Not a vehicle for Arnold, because as Terminator, how do you beat that? But like as a leading man carrying a movie, like as the main star, it's his best movie. Absolutely.
His performance was great in it. Here's the big thing. So I just watched it, to prepare for this, even though I didn't need to. I'm like, I was deprived of action movies all summer long. And so I just wanted to watch, Arnold Schwarzenegger blow up, man.
Yeah, me too. I watched it last night.
But now that I'm almost 40, I get a whole other side of this movie that I never got as a kid.
The family stuff?
The family stuff. Our parents watching this movie had a totally different view of it than we did. And now that we're older, even though I don't have kids and you don't have kids, watching this movie, you're like, oh, there's this whole other plot going on that you got as a kid, but just that mundane, bored housewife needing a thrill, thinking her husband's a boring computer guy and really he's a spy. Mm-hmm. I got all that stuff, but like the lens of that now is James Cameron nailed it. And as far as Arnold Schwarzenegger's acting ability, you're right. It's one of his greatest performances because it wasn't just him holding a gun. It had that. But then he actually had to be the dad. He actually had to be the family guy. He had to have two different personas, his home life and then his spy life. So it was really cool to go back and watch the film and see it from that perspective.
Absolutely. He has to wear so many different hats. Obviously, the action, adventure, he holds guns, blowtorches, rocket launchers, things like that. He definitely does that, but he also does the comedy stuff very well. He does sort of the mundane work life, if you can call being an international spy mundane work life. And the family stuff, the daddy-daughter stuff, the husband-wife stuff. And I bet, like, you're married now. When this came out, when you're 13 and 14, you do have to relate to it on a different level now as a married man, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Of course, I was watching it while my wife was out with one of her girlfriends.
And he just did the quotes, ladies and gentlemen. He did the air quotes on that.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Nobody can see us. This is a podcast. I see how we forget. Air quoting, she was with her girlfriend until 3 a.m.
Okay, so that's interesting.
So as I'm watching this movie, she's sending me texts about like getting hit on at the bar last night.
Oh, okay.
You know, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it really brought the meaning of that movie out for me.
You know? Yeah, it's probably a good thing that she told you she was being hit on, because then you know like what she's actually doing. If she would have given you something like, "Oh, my tire blew out, honey."
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm sorry. It's just so crazy. It took him forever to come out with a tire." That's what happens several times in this movie. Like he lies to her about what he does. He's an international spy. He's got this cover story that he even tells his family, and his wife thinks he's boring AF. And publicly, he is this very boring guy, but secretly, he's an international jet-setting counter-terrorist spy agent. And well, she starts getting bored with his domestic life, and he completely neglects her. He's always canceling plans. He never kisses her. He never does anything sexual with her. And so she starts falling for this used car salesman that has this elaborate cover store to try to get chicks. And, you know, I was just going to ask you, do you think your wife was out there last night and there's some slimy Bill Paxton type moving up on her with some crazy story about how he's an international spy? And
there probably was. There was a definite Bill Paxton last night. He slithered, I'm going to say slithered, his way up to the table. He wasn't hitting her, but he was trying to hit on her friend, and she shut him down hardcore. And I guess he walked away, looked at the bartender and went, "Man, I thought I had that one." Like, how douchey can you be to look at the bartender after getting rejected and be like, "Man, I thought I nailed that."
So I mean, what if your wife was leading a double life and you found out?
It's hard for me to answer that because honestly, I so cannot picture that. It's hard to even like put my mindset in there because she's a nurse. She goes to work. I know where she works. Although I've only been there twice in over 8 years. Maybe she is leading a double life now that I'm saying this out loud.
Well, let me just put it this way. Since you don't suspect her of living a double life, and we know she doesn't listen to this show, what's your double life, Chad? You can let us in on it. What are you secretly doing? Movie producer, podcaster, sure. What is that a front for?
You can see my films. It's also equally right there. But if I was to have a double life, I would love to be an international spy. I'm just not badass enough. That's my problem. I'm what would happen if, like, I'm the spoof. Like, if I was to play, if we were to do an alternate True Lies, I would be the spoof. I would be like,
you'd be Tom Arnold.
No. I would be Arnold Schwarzenegger and cast wrong. Like, people would laugh at it because there's no way that you're going to see me, hunting down international terrorists. I mean, and then doing the tango. It's just not in my wheelhouse.
Well, since we've killed enough time, let's talk about the movie. That tango scene. I absolutely love that opening tango scene with Tia Carrere from Wayne's World fame and Arnold just all dapper and debonair in his tuxedo.
Wait. Whoa,
doing the tango.
You just said from the Wayne's World fame. I'm pretty certain that True Lies made her way more famous than Wayne's World.
Well, she was from Wayne's World before this, is what I'm saying. She was Wayne's girlfriend or love interest, and then became girlfriend. And she, this took her to a whole new level. I mean, her level of beauty was just phenomenal. And I've never been a big ballroom dance guy, shockingly. But this movie and that scene made me want to learn how to tango because it is so hot. The pushing and the pulling, the counter movements, the way he pulls her to him, the way she kind of like loses her breath as he pulls her near. And he looks so handsome. I mean, he looks exceptional in this movie.
He looks great.
Well, of course, James Cameron is, made Arnold Schwarzenegger with the Terminator movies. And James Cameron knows how to cover for Arnold by now. I mean, he probably knows how to shoot Arnold by this point in his career and knows, you know, when to hide things. And it's pretty seamless. The stuntmen and the dancers and the body doubles, it's very seamless, I think.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I liked about this film, too, is just it wasn't afraid to be ridiculous. There are some absolute ridiculous moments in this. I think the only thing that I don't like about the movie is when Jamie Lee Curtis drops the Uzi and it's spinning down the stairs shooting everybody. That was so far-fetched to me that it really takes me out of it. Everything else I can buy. I mean, I can sell everything else.
When the Harrier jet backs into a building, crashes backwards into a building, and then just goes on flying, like, that was okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
That was
I can buy
normal.
that. I can buy that. But not the gun, not the gun falling down the stairs shooting everybody. I was like, come on.
Okay, this film was based on a French comedy film from 1991, if you can believe that. It was the first film to have $100 million budget. And it shows. I mean, it passed Terminator 2 by about $20 million. And they used every cent of that.
Well, I mean, but you know, like half of that overage probably went to Cameron and Arnold themselves.
Well, and said Harrier jet probably. So I'm watching the credit sequence and I'm like, man, this sounds like Terminator. Mm-hmm. The crediting, the opening credits score. I'm like, this sounds straight up Terminator. Sure enough, it's Brad Fiedel, the guy who did the score for Terminator and Terminator 2.
Well, that makes a lot of sense then.
So, this movie is so great in terms of the action comedy. I mean, it just mixes the two so well together, and the family dynamic. I love, you know, he's sitting there dancing, doing this tango, and he's got Tom Arnold in the earpiece in his ear, who's out in the truck. And Tom Arnold is hilarious in this film, and he's just giving him these little one-liners and these little shots at him all the time. And he's like, I'm going to walk right out the front door. Ballsy. Stupid, but ballsy. Just a classic Tom Arnold wit.
Tom Arnold was fantastic in this film. I mean, he was the great sidekick to have in the car and in your ear. You know, because
perfect.
You're you know, as an audience, we're following Arnold. I mean, we're in Arnold's head, right? And the way James Cameron did this was like Tom Arnold was in our ear the whole time. You know?
Right. And yeah, we're seeing it through Arnold's eyes, but like as everyday human beings, we identify with Tom Arnold just being this kind of everyman, fat guy hanging out in the truck while his partner's doing all this crazy stuff, blowing up buildings. But the movie has all those cheesy 90s one-liners, like he takes the two dogs and smashes their heads together and knocks them out, and he goes, "Stay." You know, it's just the classic Arnold action movie. We're almost to a point in the 90s where that stuff is, well, let's face it, that stuff is passé by this point. By 1994, the one-liners from the action movies of the 80s and 90s were getting a little bit lame. But I really think True Lies is kind of like, you know, if Terminator 2 is the best action film from the 90s, if you ask me, then this is the one that really, like, perfected it. I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not as good as T2, but in terms of the James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 90s big budget action movie genre, like, this just nailed it. It kind of perfected it.
Well, and actually, and technically they're two totally different movies. I mean, Terminator is more science fiction with action. Right. And True Lies is like 100% action movie. I mean, it is an action film, an action comedy. And if you separate those two categories, does it get any better than True Lies? I don't think it does. I don't think there's a better movie from the 90s for action comedy than True Lies. Try to name one.
The only one that comes to mind is Demolition Man. I would put Demolition Man and True Lies in the same category. I know one's science fiction, action with a little bit of comedy, and this is like straight action with a little bit of comedy. But when you said that, the first thing that came to mind is Demolition Man, and just the witty, the funny kind of story behind it, the futuristic, the lame ass, like super touchy-feely kind of society that they build. When you say that, I think True Lies is probably a better film overall, Demolition Man might be a better premise. Might be
no.
I don't know. They're up there.
Not.
They're kind of tied.
No, you can't even say that, because True Lies is a 100% better movie. Yes, Demolition Man has the cool futuristic stuff, but as far as action and comedy, tell me there's not a better story than like a boring husband who ends up being a spy with a wife who just needs to get a little thrill, who ends up accidentally becoming, getting entangled in it. And I mean, it's got everything from family to comedy to action to the cheesy one-liners you just said. No, well, it's a better film.
Oh, here's the premise. A super violent cop from 1997 gets put on ice with his arch nemesis, criminal mastermind bad guy. They both get frozen, and 20, 30 years later, they're thawed out with Sandra Bullock, and they have to face off in this futuristic society where everything is Taco Bell. The only music are like cheesy jingles from the 50s, and everything's sanitized. Sex isn't a thing anymore, and it's this cheesy futuristic patty cake society where this action has to take place. I mean,
it's a good movie. No,
premise-wise, they're at least tied.
I really like Demolition Man, but I'm sorry, True Lies is way more fun, and I like to have fun.
We'll have to come back to this discussion.
When I see a cinematic adventure, I want to just lose myself in fun.
And you're saying Demolition Man didn't scratch that itch?
It did. I don't know. Just True Lies is awesome.
We'll come back to this.
I'm sorry. I know I'm just straight up geeking on this film, but like,
that's fine. That's fine. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I'm just saying when you said that's what came to mind. And we'll come back to this discussion because someday we will do Demolition Man, because that was a great movie.
Of course, it was a great movie.
The action in this film is second to none. It is absolutely incredible. Again, James Cameron just nailed his style of action.
Yeah.
Which personally appeals to me more than the J.J. Abrams style, than the Christopher Nolan style. Like, this is my favorite kind of action. James Cameron, 90s action. Listen to this. So Arnold, they were actually on a rooftop with a horse. I guess the horse almost launched Arnold off the side of the building for real.
Really?
Wikipedia, my friend. And his stunt double, Arnold's stunt double, is the one that grabbed him and saved him from flying off the
really?
Side of the building. Yes, isn't that a crazy story? That wasn't a set. They were like, let's actually go up on the top of a hotel.
I would not be on a horse again in my life if that was the case.
Jeez. Ellen, his wife, is cheating on him, or he thinks that she's cheating on him, because he goes to the office and overhears her have this one half of a conversation. And then he's doing the Charlie Brown, like, head down walk across the street, and the bus almost hits him, and you could almost hear that doo 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 doo, like Peanuts. Sad piano music.
Oh, absolutely. And then I love how Tom Arnold hugs him when he finds out what's up. Welcome to the club, man.
Same thing happened with me to wife number 2. This was by far Tom Arnold's best role and best movie ever, right?
Ever. I mean, in fact, I was doing some research on him yesterday, and he actually proudly states actor in over 100 movies, 7 that you'll see.
This was the role he was meant to play. What a great performance. And I know this was like a comeback for him. He had a whole bunch of personal and problems before this, and then of course he would continue to have personal problems after this. But this was like Tom Arnold's year, 1994, man.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it was Tia Carrere's best role too. Mm-hmm. And Bill Paxton. I will go ahead and say it. This is my favorite role for Bill Paxton.
Totally.
Bill Paxton is the skeevy used car salesman that is so sad and pathetic. He has to go such a long way to get laid, man. He has to make up the most elaborate lie to get a woman. And what's funny to me is he's working on Jamie Lee Curtis and presumably other women too before her.
He says he is. He blatantly says it in the movie.
Right. Well, you know, but he's saying that to Arnold to kind of like seem like a big shot. So I always take what he says with a grain of salt. Like he makes it sound like he's got many going at once. No. He's like, he does use this story, but it's like one at a time. Yep. And it takes like a year to close the deal. Because he pretends he finds some woman sitting alone at a coffee shop or whatever, and then pretends like he's under attack or he's being followed or whatever, and he basically pretends to be what Arnold actually is to try to get women, to trick women into being excited and wanting to like.
Yeah, one of my favorite comedic moments of this is something that has no line at all. It's when Arnold's in the car and he asks him what his secret is, and he goes, "Oh no, trade secret." And then the very next shot, Arnold clearly bought him a hot dog or something, and he's eating. He's like, "Okay," and he just starts. So he just gives him the scheme.
Exactly. He's so cheap.
Yeah, a cheap vendor on the side. A cheap food vendor gets him talking.
Bill Paxton stole the movie in a good way here. His performance is what probably stands out in my mind most over anything, really. And when he's caught at the end, and Tom Arnold and Arnold Schwarzenegger are going to give him his comeuppance, and he just starts crying and begging for his life. He pees his pants.
I got a little. It's pathetic. You're gonna shoot me. No, I'm not gonna walk. You're gonna shoot me. You're gonna shoot me as soon as I turn around and like get lost, dip, and shoots the ground. I gotta lie to women to get laid, and it's echoing off the ravine.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger is using what's his name? Harry. Harry is using super expensive and secret black ops government resources to spy on his wife. Tracking devices, helicopters, surveillance.
Awesome.
And Tom Arnold's like, we can't be doing this. But what was Arnold thinking with that plan in the hotel? I always that was the dumbest idea. Jamie Lee Curtis to that point still does not know that her husband is the spy. And she's having to do this like sexy dance.
He was gonna come out to her. He was gonna admit his secret life.
Don't you think she would have been pretty freaked out when she would have opened her eyes and it was her husband Harry who was in that hotel with her? I mean, that couldn't have gone well. I'm sorry. How would your wife have responded to that?
You know what? Either which way, he's getting a telephone to the head. When she didn't know it was him, it was telephone to the head. If she knew it was him, it'd be a telephone to the head. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis is badass in this movie. I mean, not Linda Hamilton level, but she's awesome. I mean, she punches.
She was
fights,
mid-30s in that. Now, thinking of age, when we saw this movie, she was like the old frumpy mom through the whole movie, and then suddenly
was she really only in her 30s?
She was in her mid-30s there. I mean, she's like our age. She's a little younger than we are.
Okay, so they're both kidnapped and taken hostage, and they shoot him up with the truth serum. And then she starts kind of interrogating him under the true serum, which is a great contrast to earlier in the movie when they kidnapped her and took her to the interrogation room.
Yep.
First of all, that scene was awesome.
That scene was great.
I kind of fast forwarded that when I was a kid because stuff wasn't blowing up. Now I think that's one of the best scenes of the movie.
Yeah. Are we going to die? Yep.
And I meant the earlier scene with the mirrors and everything. I thought that was a very interesting interrogation scene, and then it's juxtaposed against this later interrogation.
Yeah, James Cameron nailed this movie in every aspect. I cannot stress that enough.
He did.
If it was in the beginning, he wrapped it up at the end. There's very little plot holes. He nailed each side of the character stories because they each kind of have their own arcs, and every character minus say the villain.
Yep,
are great.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Ellen, just learned that her husband Harry is a double agent, and then within a few minutes of that, she sees him flamethrowering thousands of terrorists. He's sitting there with a flamethrower, literally burning people alive, and you just see her eyes go all wide because this is the boring, never kiss her, computer salesman, boring workaholic husband burning people alive. It's hilarious.
What I don't understand is clearly they'd had sex before, at least once, because they had a kid. So presumably at least once in their lifetime they did it. She didn't ever notice how big her husband's arms were? I mean, like, Rex, it's sort of like, they'd seen each other naked. Like, I mean.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, why does a computer salesman need to be in that great a shape, right? It's kind of that Lois and Clark Kent thing. Like, seriously? You can't tell he's just got some glasses on and doesn't have a cape.
That always drove me nuts. That always drove me nuts.
Now his daughter has no idea whatsoever. And at the very end of the movie, she's hanging from a crane type thing.
Dad?
Hanging from... her dad flies up in a Harrier jet. Is like, jump! So one of the great Arnold lines, when he's coming on a helicopter, the best action sequence, well, there's so many great ones, but on the bridge... And the Harriers blow out both ends of the bridge with their missiles, and there's this limo riding along towards the edge, and Arnold comes flying up on the helicopter, and just a great Arnold slow-mo, the bridge is out! The bridge... I can't do it. You know what I'm saying, though. The bridge is out.
The bridge is out!
What? And then he pulls her at the last possible second out of it, and I got chills last night watching it. Like that, even knowing that it's all going to be okay, it just does what it's supposed to do. It gets you invested, and then it pays off.
But then they cut into the inside where the helicopter's landing, and it's just Jamie Lee Curtis screaming with that overly big smile, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I hated it when I was 14 and I hated it now. I'm like, what was I get that she's excited. Have her smiling or noodling up next to Arnold or something, but just screaming like that. She looked stupid.
Now, I'll say this, and this isn't a complaint, but I wonder if they could have found a way to, I think that movie would have worked just fine if it would have ended there. Like, let's say the big bad guy was in the limo and he flew off and crashed. I don't know if the final sequence with the Harrier jet and his daughter was necessary. It seemed a little tacked on, and there was so much action and so much payoff. I don't think you really needed. I'm not saying
what's
it's
hilarious
bad.
is you and I have been having this debate for over 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you said this to me back when we watched it in our teens.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of drags on, I think.
Yeah, so I always agreed with you until this last viewing, and here's the only reason why. You have to wrap up the daughter scene. You have to wrap up the daughter story. You've got it. Yeah. You got to get her into it. Otherwise, what was the point of them having the kids? You kind of had to go there.
Yeah.
You know,
just another way to skin that cat would have been to have him land a Harrier jet with his wife, and his daughter is there. You know, she sees her dad land the plane, and he's all covered in blood and ripped t-shirt and all this stuff. You could have paid it off a different way. I'm not saying it's bad, but I have a feeling like some of these action movies, especially from this time, like just they wanted that one more scene, that one bigger thing. And to me, what's bigger than the bridge sequence? Like the Harrier jet, I kind of looked a little fake to me. I felt like that scene was not as good as some of the action scene, and I kind of feel like the movie could have done without it. I mean, he shoots a missile with a guy on it through a building into another helicopter. What if that helicopter wasn't there? Or what if he missed?
You're fired.
Speaking classic Arnold line.
Dumb zingers. All right. No movie is perfect.
Right.
I mean, most movies aren't perfect.
This is close.
This is close. I mean, and because the stuff that we don't like, that we nitpick, here's the beauty of it. It's style choice. James Cameron clearly got to do what he wanted to do with the budget of whatever he wanted. So you can't really say any of it's bad. He did what he wanted. The only stuff that we make fun of is stuff that we personally don't like about it as much.
Yeah.
That's it.
That sounded like a good ending.
Yeah. You know, but here's the thing. Since all we did was geek out, I didn't get a single smart point in this entire episode. This is like the first time I've never had a smart point.
I think that last thing was the closest you're going to come to a smart point.
I'm not going to get anywhere else with true lies and a smart point. We're not doing anything to save humanity.
Maybe when we talk about Demolition Man, we'll have a deeper film to dissect and deeper points about humanity.
That's true. Because, I mean, True Lies is just all action and fun and comedy.
When your wife comes home tonight, kiss her goodnight and be thinking about the double life she's surely leading. And yours.